Cambridge Insider podcast time again. Hello, everybody. It's fantastic to have each and every one of you tuned in and listening to your favorite podcast. Mr. Craig Batson, still in Seattle, I hope, I guess. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Definitely still in Seattle for the time being. I'm surprised we've become everybody's favorite podcast. I mean, that's a pretty big bar to clear.
I mean, it's a big bar. I don't think we've become. I think we were from the beginning.
The second they heard about us, they said, "These guys, this is it. A niche podcast. This is my favorite." Okay,
exactly, exactly. And then we did the whole YouTube video thing, and we've just become even more popular.
Oh, we're fabulously wealthy. 2021 is our year. We launched in 2020, but now we're here or almost here, and it's going big.
Exactly. Anybody that can launch anything in 2020 and have it survive till 2021, I think deserves a pat on the back. Well, it's good to have you, buddy. And I'm excited about this episode. We're gonna be talking New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions for schools. Tell me a little bit about this idea.
Yeah. So we were thinking about, hey, it's the new year. What do we want our schools to be focusing on? And then we thought, hey, let's tie it into a little bit of a festive episode, and let's talk about New Year's resolutions that our schools can focus on to have the best 2021 that's possible.
Exactly. It's all about hopefully having major improvements from 2020, but making sure that you're prepared to whatever this 2021 school year brings, recruitment-wise, international program-wise, that you're there ready to pounce on the good fortune of this new year, I hope. All right, so let's run through some resolutions. We've got a little list down, you and I, that we've shared with one another. So I'm going to go through the first one, Craig, and I'd love your thoughts on this. But one of the resolutions I think schools should be doing in 2021 is making sure that students feel safe to be able to come back to the US. What are we talking about here? Give me some more information.
Absolutely. And this is the kind of most important thing we can do, because if a student doesn't feel safe to come to your school, it might not be safe. So you got to make sure it is safe, which we know all of our schools are focusing on. But then, you're not going to be able to recruit any students unless they know that they are going to be taken care of at your school and really have that successful year. Make sure that they are able to learn in person, able to succeed, able to do this. So how are we going to do it? A lot of our schools have these beautiful, 30-page plans that are very detailed. You got to have those, right? Because we need every contingency laid out so that the administrators, the families, everybody can know. But we know our students. We know a lot of our families. If we give them a 30-page English document, they're going to look at it and say, I might not even speak English good enough to read it if I'm a parent. And then if I'm a student, I'm 15 years old. I'm not reading 30 pages that I'm not being quizzed on later. So we got to find ways to make sure that they understand it. And the best way we have seen is videos highlighting your procedures. And a lot of our best schools are already doing this, sending out, it's a 2-minute video talking about all the different things that they're doing. And that's something that can really catch a family's eye and say, okay, they're taking this seriously. It's going to be safe for my student to come either in the spring or in the fall for 2021.
Okay, so I like that. I like the idea of a video. It makes sense to me. We are dealing with people whose first language is in English. We are dealing with teenagers. So for those two reasons, you want something that's catchy. You want something that, is going to grab the attention. From a school's perspective, though, are you talking about a fully produced video? Do they need to get a camera crew, before Christmas onto the campus? This is tough things that we're asking for you. What exactly do you mean? What are the logistics of this video?
Yeah, this is tough things. And it's a tough year. The logistics of the video are obviously, if you can get a full camera crew, drop $5,000, get them to come in and professionally do it, that would be great. But it's 2021 now. We all have nicer cameras on our phones than we had than existed 20 years ago. That's not true, but it feels true. Little Stephen Colbert for you there. But so make something that fits for your school, your budget, whoever you can do it, whether it's, you do it as an admissions director and you go film what your school's doing, whether you ask your multimedia or your arts teacher to, hey, can you come in? Can you make something to talk about what we're doing? Or, it's always helpful to have a student do it. Our students love to be active in these things. It looks good on their resumes. It gives them, experience in a professional setting, and working with them to create these videos works very well.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't have to be a big production. Schools can do this in a sort of a self-recorded thing on their cell phones. Really, really important. And I like what Craig said there, because of all the things that we will mention and that we have mentioned to schools throughout our podcast episodes, they're all incredibly important. But right now, where we are at this time of the year, with the virus where it is, with the vaccine rollout where it is, looking forward to 2021, probably our most important priority is making sure that families and that students feel safe and want to be able to come home or come back to the US, that they feel, hey, I can go there and I can safely attend the school of my choice. That's really priority number one. So we want to make that very clear to our schools. Craig, any final thoughts about that resolution specifically, or can we move on?
We can move on shortly. It's just, without this, everything else is worthless because we can't get students in. And so safety, it's our company talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs often, right? And if you're not fulfilling the basic needs, they're not going to be able to succeed in other areas.
Okay, well said. Well said. I like it. All right, moving on to number 2, our New Year's resolution for schools. Putting students first, making sure that students' emotional, social, and academic needs are met. We've spoken about putting students first in terms of their safety, making sure that, yes, they are safe, and making sure that they understand that they will be safe. Talk to me a little bit about their social, emotional, academic needs that we need to meet from a school side for these students.
Yeah. So this is something that's been really difficult for all of us here in America this year. We have been, distance learning, distance working, staying home a lot, and it really has, shown that it's been a struggle for a lot of us. And we need to make sure that that our students are able to succeed given the current conditions. So let's go with social and emotional first. If you have students that are distance learning in China or distance learning from home in America, what are you doing to make sure that they get the socialization and the emotional support that they need? Normally, they'd be seeing their friends. Mm-hmm. Normally, they'd be, going to school dances. I mean, obviously, proms have been canceled. Homecomings have been canceled. What are we doing to make sure that they are getting that support that they need? Especially if a student is in China, are you putting together Zooms in China, in China times, and saying, hey, why don't we all meet and just kind of talk about things? Or are your students just in China watching recorded videos at 2 a.m? Let's look at what we can do. Are we offering a full suite of things, even if it's inconvenient to us, to provide them the support that they need to feel supported, to get that sense of community?
Excellent. Well said. I think back to when I was a teenager, and my whole life revolved around that, like, social, emotional aspect, that sense of community, hanging out with friends, seeing friends. And that's been taken away for a lot of teenagers that are, still developing in so many of these aspects. So it's so very important. If you have questions about how should we be doing this as a school, feel free to reach out to your Cambridge representative. We've done, a few podcasts where we've mentioned this, but, we've also done some webinar series where we've specifically addressed this. This is something that Cambridge has taken on, has taken very seriously, and for that reason has addressed it through several of our channels. So reach out to your program manager or your school SDM, who can help you with some tips and tools to do that. Let's talk briefly as well then, Craig, about the academic aspect of that support. What do schools need to do for supporting students academically?
Yeah, so grades are coming in. First semester, first trimester is finishing up. And so we need to be looking at, are our students succeeding? And if they're struggling, what can we do to offer them help? Now, Cambridge Network identified this problem, months and years ago when a student would be struggling and the school would say, "Oh, can we get them tutoring?" But we didn't have tutors specifically ready for them, whether or not it was too expensive or too hard to get, or they didn't, have the skills to tutor an international student. So Cambridge Network now, we have tutors, we have the ability to provide one-on-one group sessions, all sorts of tutoring for our students, or any students really. So if you're noticing a student struggling, are you letting their parents know that their student needs help? Are you having a conference call with the family? Are you suggesting that the student gets extra help with Cambridge Network or another service? We just provide the ease that you can say, "Hey, can you encourage the student to sign up with the Cambridge Academic Services? How can we help them?" We have a number of things. We have subject tutoring. One thing that's been popular this year is distance learning help. There's a lot of students that are taking asynchronous classes, and they're struggling with that. So we have tutors ready to take those classes with them, not to do the assignments for them, but to act as a sort of pseudo teacher to make sure that they're watching the recordings, make sure that they understand the assignments, make sure all this information so that they can succeed in these classes.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the other things that I just briefly did want to mention, one of the other services that I find very useful, and many of my students in schools have been making use of it, is our mentorship program that we have at Cambridge as well. Many students might not have specific academic issues, but often it's a question of, I don't know how to manage my time properly. I don't know how to schedule work and school and assignments. Our mentorship service specifically looks into those things, and oftentimes if you can get those right, the rest of them fall into place. Just before we move on to the next resolution, I do want to, at this juncture, just point out how important it is for schools as well, just to communicate effectively. When we're talking about your reopening plans, communicating, how safe your campus is, communicating a student's emotional and social needs and what you're doing for them and their academic needs and giving academic feedback. Your communication is essential, not just for the safety, the development, the ongoing success of the student, but also for your brand in China. If you're a good communicator, agents, families in China know that. And if you're a bad communicator, the exact same thing. It's a very well-known thing, and your school's brand can really get either damaged or built up through great communication. So again, reach out to Cambridge, think a little bit about how are we communicating to our teams at Cambridge, but also, of course, our families and agents in China. All right, so moving on, New Year's resolution number 3 for schools. Smooth admissions processes. Did I say that right? Processes. Craig, talk to me about smooth admissions processes.
Yeah, for our last New Year's resolution, we want to talk about something that we can do. This is a little bit, we've hit this before, but let's make this year simple for students. There's going to be fewer students and more schools competing for them. If you have 5 hoops to jump through to get an interview at your school, that's not gonna cut it anymore. If you're requiring the TOEFL and the SSAT, and then you have to submit an application through 3 different systems and pay special fees and everything, it's not gonna work. So we need to make sure we can schedule interviews as easily as possible. We can ideally take the Cambridge Network application, schedule that interview, conduct the interview. And that is something. Make sure that you have simple and clear admissions requirements, because we want to get these kids in a room with you where you can meet them and start promoting your school to them as well. This is something, make it smooth.
Yeah, and just on that point as well, that interview that you do end up having with that kid is so important. If you have that FaceTime with the kid, understand that if you have a great interview with them and you can sell a little bit of your school, that's going to go a far way to having that student make a decision to enroll. I always say this to my schools. The way this market has changed is that if a student is interviewing with your school, it's very likely that there are 4 or 5 other schools very, very similar to yours that he's also interviewing with. And it's not a lack of belief in your own school. If you say, I'm going to make this as easy as possible, it's an acknowledgement that the market is where it is, and that's so important. We want all of our partners to be successful. Mr. Batson, it's a good feeling. I feel like 2021. There's something about this podcast. There's something about the sun, the winter sun today. I feel like this is going to be a good year. Come on.
Let's do it, man. I'm feeling good. 2021. I'm not going to say it can't be worse than 2020 because it could be. For all we know, it could be. But
touch wood. Everybody touch a piece of wood right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna come out like I always do with my positive attitude. Let's do this. I'm Joe Bidening. Let's build back better. That's my status for this year. We're succeeding. We're doing it. So before we go, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Here's what I'm gonna do. I want to do a New Year's resolution for you, and you can do a New Year's resolution for me, if you can think of one. So Stephen, and this is not rehearsed. This is totally new for him. And if you're watching the video, you can see he's not happy about it. Stephen, my New Year's resolution for you is pick some better sports teams. You are a fan of the Jets, the potentially worst football team of all time. And then Manchester United. I mean, come on, struggling team for ages.
That's all we have time for. It's been lovely. I'm just kidding. You know what, Batson? Because this is being recorded, I'm gonna decline to comment on any of the above mentioned. My New Year's resolution for you is actually a legitimate one. It also shows that I actually care about our friendship. But, whatever. My New Year's resolution for you is, I know 2020 has been tough. I know you're a big runner. My New Year's resolution for you is get at least 2 marathons in 2021. So, hey, let our listeners be the judge of who's the better friend. I think that's fair.
Oh, the worst part is I'm going to do 2 marathons now because you gave me that. I'm so mad.
You see, I'm looking after your health as well. It's the Cambridge Insider Podcast. It's wonderful to have you all with us. Happy New Year. And we'll see you around the corner at the next episode. Bye-bye, everybody.